Give it a second. All right. All right. Welcome, Mr. Jason Lee, to the Freedom Fries Real Estate Podcast. We were just talking a little bit before this about our service in the military and whatnot. So Jason, I think you are our first Air Force veteran on the show. So congratulations.
We try to be equel opportunity here.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
I'll save all my Chair Force jokes towards the end of the conversation. But Jason, please tell the people a little bit about who you are, and let's kick off this conversation. I'm really excited about this. This is going to be an awesome one.
Absolutely. So yeah, such an honor to be the first one. I'm glad you guys are finally including the Superior branch in your podcast and whatnot. I know you had to do a little bit of warm up before you got to the big guns. So
that's right. That's right.
I like it. I like it.
For the air power. Absolutely. So as Mike had mentioned, I'm in the Air Force. Graduated from the Air Force Academy back in 2018 and moved straight to San Antonio, was stationed at JPSA Lackland. And yeah, kind of got into real estate probably a few months after I graduated. Just stumbled across the podcast, really. Got super lucky. I was just kind of tired of listening to music, commuting to work back and forth. So I was typing in, hey, like, what are some business podcasts I can listen to? I was a business management major and kind of right up my alley, and then discovered Bigger Pockets. So that was kind of the thing that got me into it. I think a lot of people have heard of Bigger Pockets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, that's what kind of got me started and introduced into the real estate journey.
Jason, we've talked about two things so far on the podcast that seem to be a constant amongst all of us. One is we've probably all read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, right? That's kind of a standard required reading. And then we probably all subscribe to the Bigger Pockets podcast as well. And that's how we, so many of our listeners, and I think a lot of our guests, I think we all agree, like that's sort of the foundational entry point for all of us into this crazy journey.
Absolutely. And I was one of the people that checked those two boxes. Rich Dad, Poor Dad was one of the first books I read.
Every time.
The show, they always ask, hey, what's one or two books you recommend? And that was one of them that kept coming up. And I think there's definitely a reason why those are two ways people get introduced into real estate, just because I think they're both produce, like, I guess, give information at pretty much like an entry level to where anyone can understand it at any point in their investment career. People can like pick up and just start learning and actually doing stuff.
Jason, I want you to touch upon something real quick, right? Because whenever I talk to a new investor or a cadet or somebody who's just starting out into the game, the first thing I do, the only advice I give them is I say, you need to become obsessed with the learning aspect. Listen to every single podcast you can, listen to every single book, because you need to, empower yourself with that ability to have the knowledge to know, okay, I feel comfortable that I've taken so much time to learn this that now I can take action. Is that a similar mindset that you had when you were first starting out?
Absolutely. So I graduated in May of 2018. Got to San Antonio, I think August timeframe after 90 days from the academy, and then basically took 2 or 3 months just to learn as much as I could. So I was reading every book, listening to every podcast, connecting with different investors on Bigger Pockets, taking them out to lunch, trying to pick their brain. And then I gave myself the goal date of taking action starting 2019 in January. And I think that's the second part to what you were saying, is once people educate themselves and become obsessed with it, they need to take action. Because I see a lot of people kind of stuck in that analysis paralysis phase.
Yeah, no, analysis paralysis is real. And it's not a fake thing. So you're 100% right. You have to strike that fine balance of, preparing yourself with the knowledge, but at some point you kind of have to, jump off the ledge, so to say, and dive in there. But do it, it's calculated risk. That's how I like to call it. If you do your numbers, you have your knowledge, you can invest very smartly. So why don't you walk us through a little bit of, so after you're in that 3 to 4 month range, you're in that first phase, you're preparing yourself. What's the next step in your journey to, into your real estate world?
Absolutely. So starting 2019, I connected with a great investor-friendly realtor, and I just started making offers. Everything on the market that I can find, I started making offers. I knew it was a numbers game, right? I wasn't going to make 5 offers, get one accepted. I was making, 20, 30, 40, 50. And then finally, I came across one that was an REO property, or real estate owned, basically a foreclosed property. and our bank owned, and made the offer. Didn't hear anything from them for a couple months, so I just assumed they didn't accept the offer. They came back a few months later, said, "Hey, we're going to take your offer," and so that was ended up being my first deal. I bird that property, so fixed it up, kept it as a rental, rented it out, refinanced all that, and still own that rental today. So that was kind of the first property, and then I was like, that wasn't too bad. I think I could do this one again.
It's like, it actually worked.
Oh yeah,
How
what they said is true.
How much cash did you have to come up with on your first deal?
Sure. So on the first one, I think I ended up buying it for 105,000. Put about 40,000 into it, so like 145, rough numbers. And then it appraised right around I think 195 to 200. So I was able to pull most of the cash out. I think I left maybe like 5-10K in that deal.
Right.
5-10K to grab 50K in equity. Plus, it's cash flowing me a couple $100 a month. I don't think anyone's about that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man, that's fantastic. Go ahead, Spiros. That's the dream right there. That's taking, recycling your money, and you get what people don't understand, right? That I think at least the average investor is, you do the BRRRR method and you still have the property. So you get your money back, you do it again, and you still have the property. So I love it.
Absolutely.
So a lot of our listeners, Jason, I think, are like, hey, that sounds great, but I don't even have the, the 5 or 10 grand that it takes to get in the game. I mean, without asking you a personal question, I mean, did you dive into this having saved some cash that you were going to deploy, or did you dive into this education and action piece thinking, I'm going to do this the way they say, which is like, I'm not going to use my own cash, I'm going to use my brains and my effort? Tell us about that a little bit.
Absolutely. So I finance most of it with a hard money lender. And so no hard money lender is going to give you 100% of the purchase rehab. You're going to have to come with some skin in the game. So I think for me, that ended up being probably around $30,000. And with that, I actually saved that up while in college. And I took something called the cadet loan. And so I had spent some of that, just traveling and putting in investments, 401k, Roth IRA, that sort of stuff. But I think between what I had saved throughout college and that cadet loan, I was able to come up with that 30,000.
Jason, you got to say that one more time for me, because I know a lot of the cadets that I talk to, they have something similar. At West Point, they call it the cow loan, right? And I tell every single time I talk to them, I say, you should take your cow loan and you should go buy a house, right? Because that can really help you. So, Jason, say one more time what you did with your cadet loan that you got. What did you do?
And then I'll tell everybody what I did with mine. We'll compare notes.
Oh man, I saved it and I used it for my first investment property, and probably the best decision I've ever made.
Jason, I'm gonna fast forward real quick, all right? But your first cadet loan, you go from one property. What to today in 2024? How many properties have you purchased, sold, wholesaled from the cadet loan to 2024?
As far as deals go, I've probably done close to 200, like 150, 200, somewhere around there.
Come on. Yeah. There it is. I mean, all right. So anytime somebody talks to me again, I'm going to say, hey, go listen to episode 11, listen to Jason Lee at the 8-minute, 30-second mark, and you will get every answer you need. So, all right, Spiros, tell us what nonsensical decision you made with your cadet loan.
I took I wasn't a cadet, by the way. I took my career starter loan and I bought a BMW.
Sounds like a pretty Naval Academy thing to do. Yep.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
That's right.
Oh man. All right, Jason. I'm intrigued. Okay. All right. So we get the first house, and I think this is what a lot of not only new investors but seasoned investors, they struggle with scaling, right? So you could do 1, 2, 4, 5, 7 properties, but scaling from that is very difficult, right? And it's kind of where I'm at in my own personal journey, right? I've done 12 deals or so, but I'm looking to get people to get to that next level. So just walk us through a little bit what you did personally, or what niche did you find that helped you to really just skyrocket from an investor to a really experienced investor.
Absolutely. So after my first BRRRR, I flipped a property after that, and just kind of onesie twosies while still being full-time military. And it was about 2021 when I was just looking for more deals, and I was getting everything either from the MLS or from wholesalers. And the more I looked, the more I was like, man, there's just a lot of bad deals out there. Not that wholesalers are all bad, but just a lot of bad deals that are being put out there. And all the good ones, it's just way too competitive. So then I was like, okay, maybe it's time to go start finding my own deals, start seeing what this whole wholesaling thing's about. So did some research and ended up partnering with my current business partner. His name's Aaron now. And so Aaron had been doing it for a handful of years before me. And so he had a little bit more experience. But we kind of joined forces in 2022. And with just us two running around doing everything and me still being full-time military, he was doing it full-time as an investor. We were probably doing like 3 to 4 properties, so still pretty good. But what allowed us to scale, because right now we're probably doing anywhere from like 8 to 12 properties a month is kind of what we're at.
That's awesome.
I think we're like this month, for example, I think we just contracted number 7. We should have a couple more by tomorrow.
That's awesome.
I definitely say it's people. That's what allows you to scale. You can only do so much by yourself, but if you're really looking to do more and more deals, it's scaling. And that's something that we've had to learn throughout 2022, 2023 is, hey, how do we hire people? How do we create systems? How do we create processes that allows us to do that? Because what I've heard, and we've hired a business coach last year, and something he always told us was like, hey, at the end of the day, you're a business. Like, yes, you're a real estate investor. Yes, that's how you make your money, but that's just the vehicle. At the end of the day, like, you're a business. Everyone has different vehicles, no matter what it is, but all businesses operate the same. They all have their systems, their processes, and the people. So I don't know if that really answered your question. I can definitely dive more into the details.
No, please. I don't want. I can talk all day about this, Jason. So I want to give Spiros a chance to jump in. But that answered my question, and I have more. But Spiros, I don't know if you wanted to jump in first.
Yeah. So it sounds like, and I'm going to borrow. Hopefully, I'm allowed to do this, Mike, from Lady Jen Duplessis. She talks about working in your business, right? That's all about you. And then she talks about working on your business, which it sounds like is what you're doing right now, trying to build those systems and that sort of thing. And then she talks about working above and then beyond your business, right? And that's obviously, I think, what we all want is passive income someday that doesn't require you to, really get up out of bed if you don't desire to that day. So I guess with all that said, my question to you is, what is your goal for your business? Where do you see yourself? I mean, it sounds like you're only a few years into it, right? From your first deal to today, maybe 4 or 5 years. Yep. I mean, where do you see yourself in 5 years from now?
So in 5 years from now, so at least with the company that we have, and our company, it's named Murphy Home Buyers in San Antonio. And so we'd like for gross revenue to be $5 million a year, and then profit margin somewhere between 30 to 35%. And from there, I think I'd be happy with where that company is at. And I probably don't want to grow anymore, because at a certain point, if you have too big of an operation that's trying to do 30, 40, 50 deals a month, I mean, it's just creates this beast with a ton of overhead and a lot of headache, and your profit margin shrink down. So that's where I'd like that company to be at. And then from there, I'd probably transition over, hire someone to take that over. And then I don't really know what's next, transition to somewhere else in the real estate realm, whether that's a little bit more lending. I played around with the idea of opening a title company, buying some sort of service company like HVAC company, that sort of thing. But that's just kind of the immediate plan. I'm trying to focus on just this one thing, because you notice that a lot of people can get that shiny coin syndrome where you focus on something else and you can't do a bunch of things not very well, I guess.
So whether you're getting out of the Air Force in a couple of years or, in 15 years, I bet I know what you're not going to be doing when you retire. You're not going to be looking for a job, right?
Yeah, and I completely missed this important piece. I actually just separated from the military May of last year. So I hit that 5 year
congratulations,
mark.
man. All right, cool.
We call it dive and dive. But that's part of the reason why I decided to start looking for my own deals in 2022, because I wanted to see, hey, is this a real business? Is this viable? Is this something that I can jump to once I'm out of the military?
Well, congratulations, Jason. I just got off a terminal leave in December, so I'm
Awesome.
officially off active duty as well. So I
Congrats.
joined you.
Awesome.
I'm in the club now. So all right, Jason, I want to dive in. We've never had a wholesaler on the show before, and I think that's something that's really appealing, especially to a younger investor who might not have a lot of money, startup money, but they have a lot of time and they can network and they can make calls. So can you talk a little bit of just about what wholesaling is, how you go about it, and maybe some tips and tricks on being successful in that world?
Absolutely. So I'll start off with what wholesaling is. Wholesaling
Okay.
is when you go find a deal off market directly to the seller. You sign a contract with them. Hey, I'm going to buy your property for $80,000, let's say. You then take that contract and you assign it and find another investor buyer for it that is willing to pay more for that property. So let's say they say, hey, I can buy that property for for $90,000.
Mm-hmm.
You basically assign them the contract, they become the new buyer, and you make that difference, that $10,000 assignment fee. And that's essentially what wholesaling is, and doesn't require a ton of money to get into, which is why a lot of newer investors will, without a lot of money, but maybe a lot of time, will get into it. And I will
And
say that, oh, go ahead.
hold on, I want to pause you right there because that's obviously what wholesaling is, right? And I think a new investor would say, well, why would let's use me as an example, and I'm buying a property from Jason. Why would Mike pay Jason $90,000 for a property that he just got for $80,000? And Jason, you correct me if I'm wrong. Me as an investor, I will gladly pay Jason $10,000 for, marketing, for going out and finding the property, for talking, for knocking on the door, for doing all the legwork to bring me a deal that even at 90,000, if the ARV is 180,000 and I have room to make money, all day long, I'm going to pay Jason. I'm paying him for his time for doing all the work and presenting me with a deal that but for Jason, I would never have it.
Absolutely. So finding, and this is probably a good place to put this in. I wouldn't market myself as necessarily a wholesaler. I would say our superpowers in our company is just finding off-market deals. We were actually doing a lot of flips, rentals, and then if you're familiar with wholetailing, if you know what that is.
Yep.
I'm not. I don't know what wholetailing is.
Sure. So wholetailing, kind of similar to wholesaling. So basically, it's when you buy a property, we buy it ourselves, and then we'll like clean it out, and then we'll just list it as is on the market, and then another investor will likely come and buy it. And the reason why we do that instead of maybe wholesale is that once you put it on the market, that gets the most eyes on it and the most buyers on it. So likely you get a little bit more money.
So you're buying a distressed property, cleaning it out, so to say, not doing any renovation, and then just putting it back on the MLS.
Essentially, or if we're putting money in, like $500, $1,000,
Sure,
like that.
Interesting. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely.
I've heard of it called as the lipstick on a pig strategy too.
Yeah. So we loved it, and the only reason why we changed a little bit more to wholesaling this year is one, as we scale, the more deals we have, that we just don't have enough private capital to take down all those deals and buy them ourselves. And then two is with the market had shift, at least in San Antonio, shifting and slowing down. It's a little bit more risk if you buy everything versus wholesaling. But but what I was trying to get at as far as finding those deals off market, which is kind of our superpower, we find a great deal, then we figure out what we want to do with it. Because if you have a good deal, you can go a million different directions with it.
Right.
But learning that process, I mean, it's an art and it's a business at the end of the day. Like, I did not appreciate wholesalers when I was working with them being on the buy side, because I was like, what do they do? All they do is take extra money and they don't do any work. But it's until you actually go getting a deal yourself, do you realize, one, marketing costs money, if you want to depend on what channels you're doing. Two, it takes a lot of time. And three, the sales negotiation, all that sort of stuff. It's very, very valuable.
So, Jason, you say your superpower is finding off-market deals. Talk us a little bit about, what you've done or what are some tactics? Like, how do you use that superpower? How do you find off-market deals that make sense to, then have in your inventory to make those decisions on, pursuing one of the options that you discussed?
Absolutely. So the first thing is it all comes down to marketing, right? It's, how do we find these sellers that want to sell their property, either because maybe they're in a distressed situation, they're going through a divorce, foreclosure, something like that, or you come across people that just don't want to sell on the market because money's not a big factor to them. They don't want people coming to their house for showings, or they just need the money fast. So there's a few different marketing strategies and methods. The ones I pitch to people that have a lot of time but not a lot of money, I'd say, hey, door knocking is a great one. Going on the MLS, making offers is another good one, and then cold calling, cold texting. Those are fairly entry level marketing strategies. The thing with that is that it just takes a lot of time, and you're going to get a lot of no's and slaps in the face, doors in the face. But there's definitely deals there. And then once you start getting a little bit more money, let's say you wholesale a little bit, there's some new marketing strategies that I kind of recommend to people that are less time intensive, but still yield great results, just cost more money. And this is the stuff that we do. So mail is one that we constantly do. We run TV ads and then big online presence through SEO, PPC. Those are our main marketing strategies right now.
Cool.
That's awesome.
That's exciting. I have a question for you. Why do you think so many wholesalers have a really bad reputation?
So I think two answers to that. The first one is that to them, it's just, we want to squeeze as much money as we can out of it. We don't care if it's a first time buyer that has never done a deal before. It's, we'll probably never see them again, but as long as we make our money, who cares who gets hurt in the process? And I think there is some of that out there. And so typically those people, they're inflating the ARVs, they're undervaluing the rehab costs just to make the deal look sexy. They're cherry picking comps. But I think the second part to that is some of it is maybe, they don't really care what happens to people. But I think a lot of that is honestly just kind of ignorance and like inexperience on their behalf. Yeah. Because most wholesalers, as we said before, they get into wholesaling because they don't have a lot of money, right? They can't get straight into flipping. They can't get straight into the burst strategy and these other methods. And so for a wholesaler, it's easy to theoretically pump out numbers on a deal and say, oh, theoretically it should be this. But anyone that's ever flipped a house before will tell you, like, nothing ever goes right. You always go over budget. Like it's never perfect, like the plan.
Yep.
And so they don't know. It's like the college kid that everything's perfect in textbook theory, right? But then you go out into the real world and it's very different.
Right. So yeah. Spiros and I are both flipping a house right now, so we can strongly relate to to that statement of going over budget and trying to stay on track. So, no, those are great points. And I don't know, the way I see it, Jason, right? Like if I'm a young wholesaler, experienced wholesaler, whatever it may be, if I'm honest and I'm creating, a good situation for my investor on the other end, that's a contact, that's a friend, that's a mentor, whatever you want to call it, for life, that I can always go to, where if we do we have successful business, we have a good transaction, the next time Jason brings me a deal, I'm not going to think it's just lipstick with a pig or somebody trying to inflate numbers, because I know Jason cares about my deal. I know Jason's in the trenches. I know he knows the market, and I'm going to, obviously do my due diligence, but I'm going to look at that deal a lot differently and a lot quicker than it is, some random person posting it on the, San Antonio home buyers Facebook group with crazy ARVs and, nonsense. So I don't know, just, in my perspective, if you're a wholesaler, your end buyers are so important to you, because those are, that's your lifeline. And if you could build those connections, it's huge. It's, you can't put a price on it.
Absolutely. I would rather, and our strategy with that is we're slowly building our wholesaling list, but we keep it very small. I mean, we only have like 10, 15 people because we want them. We know that they're good to close. We know that they trust us, and we trust them. And that's a very different approach than a lot of other wholesalers of like, hey, let me just blast it out to thousands of different cold emails that I've never reached before. Most of the time those hit the spam inbox anyways. So absolutely.
Great point.
Jason, on houses that you flip, let's talk about that a little bit. What is the typical kind of project that you're taking on dollar wise, and then time wise? How long are you spending on these flips?
Sure. So I've done kind of flips all over. I've done like the 100-year-old historic homes. I've done, you literally paint flooring. And so I've come to learn that I love the easy stuff. I love
me too.
I would say if we can be in and out in less than 6 weeks, I would say 8 weeks probably max.
Yeah.
Mainly cosmetic. We have a lot of foundation stuff in San Antonio, so we'll do foundation just because if you don't,
Yeah, I found that out the hard way, Jason.
a lot of foundation stuff in San
Yeah,
Antonio.
so I just did my first foundation repair in San Antonio, so I found that out the hard way.
Oh man! And if you ever need any contacts, like
yeah, man, for
foundation
sure.
contact stuff, be sure to let me
Appreciate
know.
that. Appreciate that.
But yeah, so we like the easy stuff. So foundation will do, light plumbing work, light electrical work. But anything we could do, like mainly cosmetic, floor paint, we'll redo the kitchens, the bathrooms, that sort of thing, in and out is what we like. So typically anything that requires a heavier rehab, we'll go ahead and wholesale it or wholetail it. And unless there's just crazy upside to it, but usually, the rehabs we do, they're like $40K or less usually.
Okay.
And Jason, are you did I read correctly? Are you a real estate agent as well? So are you listing these homes yourself?
So I am not. I've never been licensed as a realtor. And I mean, I don't think you need to, at least in Texas.
No.
You don't need to. And yeah.
So do you guys have a real estate agent, like a go-to agent who lists everything for you, or are you putting them on an independent MLS service?
Sure. We have two realtors that we constantly work with. So one of them, she's actually the one way back when that helped me get my first bird deal.
Still cool. That's awesome.
She's awesome. And so we use her for all of our flips. And so, we typically give her probably like 1 to 2 every single month. And then we have a different realtor that he lists a lot of our as is stuff, just because dealing with like investor buyer versus retail buyers is very different. Right. We have him do that. And he does our mobile homes too. So we do a lot of mobile homes.
Cool. That's awesome.
So tell us,
go ahead, Spiros.
List out your team. You kind of highlighted you got a couple of realtors, but let's stretch that out a bit and tell us about your whole team and what kind of people you depend on to kind of keep your business going.
So as far as our actual employees and everything, people within the company, we have myself and then my business partner, Aaron. And then we have one lead manager or inside sales guy. And his job is basically, hey, we do all this marketing. You have sellers calling in. He's the first line of defense, or the first guy that's picking up the phones, calling these sellers and qualifying them. Hey, is this actually a lead for us? And he determines if they're qualified. And then if they are qualified, we have that one lead manager. He creates appointments we have 2 acquisition managers, and these are the guys actually going to the houses, meeting the sellers, making offers, negotiating, and locking up the deal. So our sales guys really. So he's setting appointments up for them. So we got 1 lead manager, 2 acquisition guys. We have a construction manager that runs most of our flips and our rehabs. And we have 2 virtual people down in Mexico. One is more for administrative stuff like office admin. And then the other one is for, right now, I'm trying to build out a lot of my SOPs or systems and processes. And so his job is basically full-time, just like documenting everything for me. So that way we have a playbook or a manual for the company. And then outside of the company, we have the realtors like I was talking about. And then we just have great contacts everywhere else. We have good GCs that we can use. We have good lenders, hard money lenders, private money lenders. We have one title company that we do like 99% of our transactions with, and they're investor friendly, awesome people. And and I think that just building those connections are the thing that's allowing us to do more and more deals.
Awesome.
Jason, I hear this a lot on different podcasts that I'm listening to, and I think you've just described a really, really good core group of people, right? But a lot of the podcasts I listen to are investors that I hear from. They struggle with finding people who have the same drive and work ethic as the owners, right? As the 2 main people. So I don't know if you can talk a little bit about what your approach has been, or how you have found people who care as much as you to be successful and, put in the time. And especially the person that you mentioned who's that frontline defense, basically, who's getting those first phone calls. That person's got to be instrumental in just being able to know the lingo and have the conversations with potential home, people who are selling their homes, and to be able to articulate what you guys have in your mind as the owners and get that information over. I don't. That's a big wordy question, but I don't know if you could touch upon that a little bit.
Absolutely. So I will say that our guys are rock stars. I'm thankful for each one of them, and yeah, they're absolutely awesome. I'm so happy to have them on the team. And so just hiring people, that was a learning process in and of itself, and I'm still trying to learn how to manage people these days. But one of the big things is that I guess that while we were hiring on that, we just some I would say some advice for people ever like looking to hire people on their team. One is we actually use like I don't know if you've heard of like the DISC profile or the DISC personality profile.
I
I
haven't, but
haven't.
I'm
I
interested.
haven't.
Sure. So it's kind of like any of those other personality profiles. I think there's like Myers-Briggs, the
Yep.
Enneagram is another one. I like DISC because it's 4 letters. I can military guys like I can do 4 letters, right? The other one there's like 8, 9, 10 different things. But basically every I've noticed that like every position in every job, there are certain people that are wired a certain way to fill those positions. Because, for example, sales guys have a certain disc profile. They're usually a DI or an ID. So when we go out looking for people, we look for people that have those personality profiles. Not saying that if you don't, you can't be successful in that, but it's just there people are wired a certain way. And so when you try fitting like a round peg in a square hole, right? It doesn't really work and people end up getting burnt out. So the sales guys we have right now, like they fit their disc profile and they like absolutely love their job and they crush it. So that's one thing that we always use when hiring people. And then the second thing that I say is pretty big is just setting um, like expectations up front and very clear with those people. And we actually have KPIs or key performance indicators. And these are metrics that we use to track our employees. So each one of the guys, it's like, hey, you need to make this many calls a day. You need to be making this many offers a day. We track how many deals that they're locking up. And it's all self-reported. And so that way they know like, hey, these are my goals, these are my expectations, and I know how to do my job very clearly. So those are like the two main things, and that helps us kind of manage them, but also like get them to where they know like how they're performing too. And like I guess yeah. I don't know if that answers the question.
Look, that's amazing. Let me tell you. I mean, I've been in business. I've run my own company for the past 20 years, and it sounds like you are legit watching the details. You're building systems. You're creating an enterprise as opposed to, what we in the business world call a legacy business, which is something that's very difficult to sell someday. It's something that's very difficult to scale, but you're actually building an enterprise that's going to be scalable, and it's going to allow you to achieve your goals. And guess what? Someday it's going to allow you to bring somebody in to run it, because everything has really been well thought out, and have, like you said, a standard operating procedure in place. That's amazing. Hats off to you, man. That's very
Thank you so
cool.
much.
That's
Thank you
not
so much.
there's a lot of people that we've talked to, um, that are investors, right? And they identify as an investor. And they, a lot of them do very well, but you're taking it a step further. You're a business owner. You're developing an enterprise. So that's really great. That's actually a very cool thing to see.
I appreciate that. And yeah, this is stuff that we've slowly learned. I wish I knew all this from the beginning and we'd be a
Yeah,
lot further than we are, but it's just kind of learn as you go. So those are pieces of advice I would offer after doing it for a couple of years. And the last thing I'll say too is like, we're nothing without the people. So we try
yep,
our best to just treat our people well. Obviously, we want to pay them, but pay is only part of it. It's, what gets them in the door, but it's not the thing that gets them to stay. So we
sure.
try to build a good company culture, good core values. We do company outings and stuff and try to bring include everyone's families. And so our goal is just to make it a great place for people to work, and hopefully they just never leave.
That's awesome. So tell me what can we do, Mike and I and the Freedom Fries podcast family, do to help you?
So, well, first, I just appreciate you publishing me on your podcast.
Yeah.
I just love connecting with people. That's a big push the last couple months, and in 2024, that's a big push for my partner and myself, is to start connecting with more people. We've started to get bigger on social media, starting to post more. Just, hey, if you want to get started, here are some tricks and tips and stuff that we've learned throughout the years doing, 200 deals or so.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I would say just anyone looking to get started in real estate, anyone that's in the middle of their journey looking to scale, like just point them my way. I'm more than happy to talk to them, and I just love connecting with people.
Great. And how about you had mentioned earlier about sort of going Winchester on your available capital to do more and more deals. Is that something you're open to, is people that have capital to deploy but don't necessarily want to do the work?
Absolutely. We love private lenders. We have a handful that we work with and always looking for more. The way we work it is we tie an investor to a deal, and we make sure to do all the proper documentation and everything. So their money is attached to the property itself. So we can't go run away with it. You have a lien on the property. We call it a deed of trust here instead of like a mortgage.
Yep.
But we tie it to the property. So if anything should happen, at least it's secure and they can foreclose and all that. And we have never done that before.
Sure.
But yeah, we love private lenders.
Awesome. Well, that's really great, man. I think we lost Mike for some technical reason there. So I'll kind of close this out. It's been a pleasure, Jason, to get to know you. And no joke, I'm in awe of the enterprise that you're building. It's very cool. And I'll tell you, I'll definitely be calling you because I do have, some capital to deploy. And I know quite a few people here in my local area that I live in Florida, right? So sometimes it's hard to deploy capital in Florida just because the prices are so high.
Sure.
And the margin levels are, they're not always conducive. So I do know a good bit of people here that would love to deploy into a more investor-friendly market. So definitely keep an eye out for those texts and calls from me.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. And I'll definitely connect with you after the show. And yeah, just looking forward to keeping in touch with you and Mike. And typical
Great.
Army guys can't figure out the technology, but it's all right though.
That's all good. All right, man. Thanks, Jason.
Okay.
Take care.